What's going on, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX podcast, and I am excited to be joined today by somebody who is going to really help us a lot, quite a bit. I know that I'm going to ask her a number of questions for my own brand, and I'm really excited to be introducing to you today, Kaleigh Wiese. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. We do have a lot to talk about.
For those of you who don't know, I was recently out. It was my first time going to Wedding MBA out in Las Vegas, and I was able to interview Kaleigh very, very quickly. And just from that, I don't know, minute and a half, maybe 2-minute conversation that we had, I immediately told Damien, who helps me produce this podcast, we've got to get Kaleigh on the show. I looked through all of her content. I highly recommend, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on the podcast, that you go over and check out Kaleigh's website, beautiful website, but also just what she does and really getting a deeper dive. We're going to try to cover as much as we can here today and in the time that we have together. But Kaleigh, before we launch into just all things brand and I have so many questions for you. I can't wait. But before we do that, how did you get started in the wedding and events industry? What's your origin story? How did you get started with brand? Kind of give me a little bit of a background on who you are and how this whole thing got started.
Totally. So do you want the long story or the short story? So I'll give you
as much as you want. I'm excited to hear it.
So I was essentially born an entrepreneur. Since I was very young, I would go to the library and be like, what does it take to have my own business? What I found is I'm very right brain and left brain. I love strategy, but I love the pretty. And so as I matured and got to know other small businesses, I realized that they were incredible in their craft, especially small creative businesses, but they were terrible at marketing themselves. And so I have a degree in visual communications. And so to me, why have the pretty if it doesn't have meaning and purpose backed alongside of it? And so I started branding small creative businesses in college, mostly fashion designers, mostly interior designers, handbag makers, jewelry people, whatever it might be. And I realized that this was the passion that I had. In 2008, I got asked to brand a wedding. So I was branding businesses. I got asked to brand a wedding. And so I was doing, the brand color palette. I was doing their logo. We were talking about implementation, client experience, all the things that a brand is. And I realized this industry needed what I had been teaching and how I had been helping in a really big way. And so since then, I've dedicated my career to helping the event professionals across the world be able to do their work at a level that fulfills them, but also is attracting and magnetizing the clients that they want to work with. And Fortune 500 companies use techniques like colors and fonts and marketing strategies that we as small businesses have free access to do as well if we have the knowledge of how to implement them. And so that's really my passion, is being able to share strategies and techniques that are going to help event industry professionals be able to position themselves to really stand out and show their uniqueness compared to their competitors. Able to talk to their clients. So that might be the website, social, it might be client experience interactions, or, your what other people say it is. So what in your community are people talking about you in a way that's really benefiting you?
I love that. That is so powerful because, like you said in the very beginning, a lot of times, as creatives, as business owners, I think regardless of the industry, whether it's this industry or others, a lot of times business owners are skilled at what they do, but they're not as skilled at maybe even showing what they do in the most beautiful way. And so the service that you provide is incredible. I had a question though, that first wedding that you said you styled or you helped them with the brand, were you hired by the coordinator or were you hired by the couple?
I was hired by the company that I had been working with. That was like the dad, quote unquote. And so the dad's daughter was getting married and he was like, all that you're able to bring to a business, can we brand this event where it feels flawless? It feels more luxurious than maybe the price point was because of how the consistency and the look and the feel was across the board. So it started as the family, but they did have a wedding planner, and I've been very lucky to do very limited event branding through the years. And that being said, works with some incredible planners around the world. But my focus is really the business to business side.
Yeah, I was just thinking that exactly, like how neat it would be to have weddings. I mean, obviously wedding planners do such a great job styling things, but really to understand from a bride's perspective exactly what she's looking for and just help give that overall look and feel. You mentioned color palettes, and I have to say again, for anyone, listening to this or watching this online, you have to go and check out Kaleigh's website. She has a link, and maybe we can even link this in the description. I don't know, Kaleigh, I'm springing this on you, but you have a really cool download that I checked out while doing some research, and it kind of talks about some of those colors.
Yeah, so the simple color theory guide that I have is just a free PDF to help people understand the power of what color can bring to a business. And 90% of snap judgments on a brand is based on color alone. So there's a reason that banks use the color blue, and there's reasons that things that we eat or at the grocery store or that we're moved red, purple, and yellow, and whatever that might be, because the way that our brains perceive color is really powerful. And so choosing a color that works for your logo or your brand toolbox, or a series of colors. Most of the time I tell businesses they should have 2 primary colors, and then they should have maybe 2 accent colors. And so that's going to help almost create the memory in people's brains that they've seen your business over and over again. They might remember the color before they remember your business brand name. And so when we're able to utilize color in the way that Tiffany and Company is able to use it, or when we see the colors in Google, or when we see Coca-Cola red, we can identify those colors based on the brand without even ever seeing the name. And us as small business owners, we're also able to do that. And like you said before, we're juggling a lot of things as solopreneurs and small businesses. It's like one more thing, right? Like, what are we doing for our marketing? And my goal with brand strategy specifically is it should not be stressful. It should be something that you know who you are, you know what colors to use, what fonts to use, and then you move forward with confidence and not stressing out and crying in Canva because you want it to be the most beautiful thing everyone's ever seen for a social post, when all you need to do is use colors that are actually working for you and fonts that are working for you, and then consistency, which we can really unpack in the short term ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say consistency sounds like it's not just, using these colors one time and then changing them. It's also, using them again and again and again. So there's some consistency, and people are seeing that across your feed, your website, wherever else that is.
Exactly. I mean, how long have you been seeing the Nike swoosh, right? Like, it's not like every year they seasonally change their logo, or they think, well, we're going to continue to level up and we're going to change it. But it really does matter when you actually remove yourself and think about other big brands that have had a legacy. They have not really changed much at all. Or if you're wanting to get in the luxury market, if you think of luxury brands like Gucci and Chanel and Nordstrom, and what brands are reflective of a higher price point, they're quite simple. They're pretty straightforward. They're very timeless. And so one of the mistakes I see is brands on the small business level overthinking it and adding too much glitter and fluff and smoke and mirrors, when it can come across almost, to be honest, a little bit desperate, as opposed to something clean and straightforward and functional that's going to last you for a long time.
Awesome. Do you feel like there's a good time to do a brand reset, if we're going to use that word? Like, is there a better time than others? Obviously, we're here at the end of the year, but is there, let's say someone's in June listening to this, or September, or, whatever time of the year, is there a better time than others to do this, or is the best time like yesterday?
Well, I have a couple different thoughts on this. I think if you were just starting your business, I think you have to have a logo, you have to start moving forward and figure clients for you. Once you know who you want to serve, how to make the decisions in your personal brand and who and how you love to do what you do, along with who you're trying to reach. That's kind of the foundation of the strategy of being able to pick colors and fonts. In the sake of how often should you evaluate? If you are not getting inquiries that you would like to be getting, then it might be time to do an evaluation. And that could be January through December, any time of the year. If you are at a place where you just feel stuck, you're wanting to level up, it might be something that you just want to evaluate. I also have the opportunity to meet with lots of business owners who have been in business 10, 20, 25, 42 years, someone a couple of weeks ago. That's a really long time. And I think that you also want to come across relevant. And sometimes logos and trends we will get sucked into to be a part of. And so I'm pretty sure if you saw a 1990s logo right now, you would absolutely be like, oh, that looks so either retro or, you would identify it as being old fashioned. And so I think being aware that we may need to adapt, but that doesn't mean that you should do an overhaul. Sometimes that's removing the drop shadow or making it one color instead of 5 colors, or just tweaking it to be a little bit more relevant. Because when you do change things, imagine having a big speed bump ahead of you, because you lose that consistency, right? People won't know how to identify that icon or that color or those fonts with you. And so you do have to proceed with a lot of caution when you do make an evaluation to change things. And then you need to be really intentional about launching it. I think, as I'm coaching my customers about, okay, how now you have this new logo, how are you putting it out into the world? It really can come from a place of creating more buzz and more hype, because you're able to express, we've made changes because this is who we're going to be in our next chapter. And so if you're a DJ, let's just say, who is now offering lighting and now offering a photo booth and is more of an entertainment company, but your original logo has headphones and a CD, right? Like, it's like, okay, it might be time to just do an update, but that might mean keep the same font and just remove the things that might be holding you back from being identified to all that you're able to offer. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it totally does. And it's really cool. I love that you said it gives you that opportunity to kind of change some things about your brand. And so it sounds like it's not just for new businesses. This is not just something that you kind of do once, but this is something you periodically check in as your business evolves, as you mature as a business owner. That's really neat. I like that quite a bit.
I do have a few thoughts in terms of like your brand specifically is, more than just your logo. So I think a lot of times when I'm talking about color theory and font psychology, people think of, oh my gosh, I need to change my logo. That may not necessarily be the case. I think it is important that you're evaluating how your brand is being perceived multiple times a year. I talk about the every 90-day rule, like just check in. This is a very long turnover rate in the wedding industry and events industry, from engagement period to actually doing the work and having that couple leave your ecosystem. And so the decisions that you make today about your brand are likely to affect what your brand is going to look like and your business is going to look like 12 months, 15 months, 18 months from now. And so being on top of it to understand, how do I want to continue to refine and polish? And it may not be your logo. It may be your other brand aspects that are, how can I have a better client experience? What are the touch points to be able to create that brand? What other people are going to say about me? How can I improve it on lots of different levels? So I do challenge the listeners to think about, of course, from the top down, your logo and how it's representing you as a mark, but perhaps there are other areas in your brand that you would be able to adjust and tweak that would get you to the elevation that you need to or want to reach and charge what you would like to be charging.
Totally. Kaleigh, this is just such a perfect segue. I have to ask this question now. But I want to also talk about, just for beginners, people who are maybe getting their businesses started here in the end of 2021, going into 2022, or maybe even people who are, wanting to redefine some things. Maybe they got into business in 2020 and they want to do a little bit of a brand refresh. So I want to talk about that. But the question that I wanted to ask you was, how much of your brand, in your opinion, is not visual? Because we've been talking about all things visual right now, but as a brand strategist, as someone who's talking about brand, like what is your opinion on brand not being visual? Maybe what things collaborate together to make a brand that's not visual?
I mean, I definitely think I don't have exact data on this, which does make me a little embarrassed because I feel like I should definitely look this up. But my assumption is it honestly is probably a 60-40, like 40% is based on visuals, first impressions. It takes someone 2.6 seconds to make a first impression online. And so you are losing your opportunity to connect with them if they land on your homepage and they say, oh, this person is not right for me. So I know that is incredibly huge. I also know that this industry is made up of referrals. And so the better that we can create client experiences that will create momentum and will give back. I also think that a lot of our brand is how we interact with other people in our communities. How we interact with other people we want to work with, or venues or planners, those relationships I have seen for me personally, as well as some of my dear friends in the industry. They've been able to scale their quote unquote brands because of the relationships and the ecosystem that they've had. And so I definitely think, it's multifaceted. I talk about brand magic is the intersection between knowing who you are and what you want to do, knowing who your people are, understanding the visuals that are going to help tell that story, and then understanding the client experience and understanding that each touch point that you have with someone is a meaningful reflection on your brand. So for those 4 quadrants, if you can tap into all 4, that is literally where you see momentum and growth and being able to charge what you want to charge and all of those things. So definitely just keeping in mind, where can I check the box in those 4? In regards to people who are just starting their businesses, huge congrats. It takes a lot of guts and bravery to put yourself out there. And like I said, you can't get hung up on the logo or even the business name for that regard. Sometimes I meet with people and they're like, I still don't have a name. I still don't have a name. It's like, it doesn't matter. You can still provide a service and start getting traction, because starting your business is really about failing fast and trying things, seeing what works. You may have the assumption that you love doing X, Y, and Z, and you start doing it and you're like, no, we're going to refine and make it something different. And so I think just failing fast is one recommendation that I have. And then once you do know what it is that you want to serve, who you want to serve, and what it is that you want to actually deliver, then you're able to make really intentional choices about the visual components that go with that. And if you're using resources for me or doing a little bit of searching, I actually even just pulled aside one of my favorite reflective books that I give out, and it's called the Non-Designer's Design Book. And it literally is the perfect thing for people who are just starting their business, who are wanting to DIY their own marketing. And it literally is like, this is good design, this is bad design. And just having the knowledge of what's good and what's bad and what makes you look like an expert and a business as opposed to just a hobbyist is really the strongest thing that I would want anyone who's just starting to focus on. Is what is every action that I could put into my business that's going to position me more like an expert and less like a hobbyist. And to be honest, I was just on social media about this morning. One of those things is boundaries. To be honest, that is a differentiator of a hobbyist versus a professional, is someone who doesn't have client experience and strategies in place. The business owner who's making themselves available 24/7 or not telling their clients how the system works, the process works, that's the most successful. And so part of our brands is also positioning ourselves as the guide and the leader and the professional that we are. And that comes through both behavior and through the visual aesthetics that we can put out there.
I'd love to talk about that more. But first I want to ask, do you feel like, as someone maybe is starting their business or they've started it recently, let's say, is there a good time or maybe range of time that you would give somebody, like maybe start your business, start executing, start getting some traction, and then 3 months in, really do a deep dive on your brand and then get it set up? Is it kind of a 3-month window, or is it?
Yeah, I think 90 days is a great time to get traction. I mean, I think we all would love to have intentions to do things in our businesses weekly and monthly, and we just don't have the priority or the time. I also think we don't have the roadmap, right, to get the reviews. And again, because this industry is such long turnover, we have to get traction to figure out what's working, what's not working. And to be honest, knowing how to say no to some clients who aren't the right fit for us. And some of that takes time. So I feel like 90 days is a great time to just be like, okay, is who I've been attracting working? Is the processes I've set in place that represent my brand working? Is the boundaries I have in place in terms of what I'm setting for office hours or my minimum pricing working? And then you're able to evaluate and refine and set those new standards going into the next chapter. And then I think for the visual component, I definitely don't want someone tweaking their logo every 90 days for sure. But I think that there might be things that you might want to position on your website differently, or maybe you find that there's something that you're not communicating clearly through the visuals, or maybe on your homepage, the only photos that you have is from this one event or this one wedding. And so that's all you've been able to showcase. And over a 90-day period, you're going to be able to maybe schedule a styled shoot. You might be able to, work on a new project or do a personal brand photo to be able to incorporate more photos of yourself working or on the job. And those things are going to continue to polish and position the visuals to be more positive for someone.
Kaleigh, I want to push back a little bit on something you said and really get your perspective here, because I know in my own personal business, so my wife and I in college started a staffing company that turned into venue management, which is what we do today. But prior, when we were doing staffing, we kind of got into the business because people kept hiring us, I guess. I think people kept hiring us initially because we would pretty much do anything. Like, take out the trash, no problem. Serve some food, no problem. Bartend, we got you covered. Like, we would just do everything and we wouldn't really charge very much. We certainly weren't charging what we were worth. We certainly had no idea what we were worth. We didn't really understand who we were as business owners, as people, market positioning, a lot of these different things. But I think it took that, and we actually we were doing staffing, like food and beverage staffing. We took on doing deliveries of like rental stuff. And we found out very quickly we didn't want to do that. And so, but that for us kind of took some of those hard lessons. But I could see another business owner maybe doing that same thing and realizing how much they liked doing the rental delivery, or how so do you think that it really kind of takes some of that like grinding around in no man or woman's land, as you kind of feeling around, especially as a new business owner, trying to understand like, who do I actually want to be before you make that determination?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know I've personally been through it. I can't think of a situation where a friend or colleague or someone I have worked with or alongside has not went through that. Like, I think that you have to, I used the word just a little bit ago, like fail fast. I mean, I think you have to just be in it and try things, and you'll find out what works and what doesn't work. And I think honestly, one of the mistakes I see is someone respects someone else so much in the industry that they try to start mirroring what they're doing and realize once they get in there, they hate it. And it's not for them because they're unique. They're not that other person. And so I think the sooner that a business owner can find out what really makes them thrive, like at the end of an event day, when they're like, that was the hardest work of my life, but I love it. And I just have a smile on my face. How do I do more of that? Right? To set the boundaries. And I personally continue to do that. Yesterday, I sent an email to a client who had a request that I originally said yes to. And I was like, you know what? This is not worth my time. And it's not something that I enjoy doing. So I had to send a really challenging email, and it made my stomach kind of turn that I had to have that conversation. But after I did that, I was thinking, now what freedom that I have to be able to work on more projects that I'm more passionate about. So I think you'll get in it. And when you get that pit in your stomach that you're like, oh, I'm so frustrated that I'm going to have to do this, cut that. You don't have to offer everything. And honestly, you're going to be more known the more niche that you can become of what you serve or what your style is, that serving everyone serves no one. So I think that you will start your business serving everyone, trying things, failing fast. And then once you figure out what it is that really lights you on fire, and what people really resonate with. And you'll start seeing that in your reviews, to be honest. Like, people will start commenting about certain service offerings or certain things that you've brought to the table. And that's where you can hold on to your uniqueness.
I love that. I was just talking with Artem Lomaz the other day, who actually also met at Wedding MBA. And we were talking about, luxury and high-end clients. And we were having a discussion there. And he said something that was interesting. He said a lot of people want to like get into working with a higher end client or a luxury wedding or something like that. But then they get there and they realize that they can't really relate. Maybe they don't really enjoy it. They don't understand the mindset. And so that really sounds like, it's relevant all throughout this discussion. And then obviously our industry. It's
by far not. It's working in luxury is by far not the most profitable. People assume the big dollar amounts, but even from the work that I've done for my stationery business, event branding, it will be nothing for someone to spend $40,000 on the event brand concept and the stationery components, which is a lot of money. That's a budget for many, many weddings. But when the product cost is $30,000, whatever it might be, it's like the margins for the business owner and for the stress that's involved is really not practical. And so I always about own your market, own, the middle end of your market, and then niche into what you want to be known for within that space. And I think that that's the best place to live, both on a personal level, because you'll love what you do every day, but you'll also be respected for the craft that you bring to the table.
That's so well said. I really, really like that. And I know the business owners that are listening to this are going to get so much value. And even the business owner hopefuls who are maybe listening to this right now, they really want to start their business. Maybe they're, kind of in an apprentice situation, listening to this really gives a pretty clear roadmap. I actually want to move in that direction though, and spend a little bit of time asking you, again, going back to those new business owners, a kind of roadmap. You mentioned that earlier. Are there some things very early on, maybe even some tools, maybe even some things that you would recommend people do? Is it a brand kit? That may be a new term for some people. Is it, I think you said 4 colors. You said a couple of primaries, a couple secondaries. Could you kind of give us a little bit of branding 101, stuff that folks can do by themselves before they give you a call and really sharpen what they're doing?
For sure. So I use a couple different terms here, but I think these are all the right questions you should be asking yourself if you're just getting started. So you have been working a little bit, you have your ideal client in mind, you know how you want to be perceived, and then you're going to utilize tools, kind of like I have for the color theory guide on my website. And so you're going to find out, okay, if blue represents care and calming, and green is enthusiasm and nurturing, and yellow is the color of happiness, you can quickly identify what color can I use to help best represent myself when I'm not there. So choosing color is a powerful thing. In the same way that you can choose colors, you can also choose fonts. So this gets a little bit more technical and it's hard this in audio, but there's sans serif, serif, playful styles, and scripts. So those are kind of the 4 main categories. And just because you're a wedding business doesn't mean that you need to use script. And just because you want to come across modern and young, you don't want to use a sans serif. So you want to make sure that you're using a font style that's really going to be reflective of you so that you don't blend in, you stand out. That's going to be really important. And so you can use the colors and the fonts to really then either work with a designer to say, I know that from a strategic perspective, these are things that I want to incorporate into my logo visually. Go for it. Show me what you got. But make sure whoever you're working with is coming from a place of strategy. Once you have a logo, you're also going to want to build out your brand toolbox. So your brand toolbox is going to be that logo, and you should be able to have a logo that's in color and in black and white. It should be able to be the size of a thumbnail or the size of a billboard and be legible. So that's why sometimes people do like an icon or a symbolism so that when you get it real small, kind of like on Instagram on the avatar, you can still see that, okay, that's a mark that represents that business. For the colors, definitely you want to have primary colors and secondary colors. You may mostly use the primary colors, but the secondary colors you could use on a business card or a surprise and delight moment of some kind. And really utilizing color can be really impactful. One of the mistakes I see event professionals doing is that they are like, I'm just going to say black and white because it's neutral. And to be honest, when a couple is looking at 10 different websites shopping for that vendor and everyone's black and white, there is nothing about anyone that's going to be memorable or stand out. So just use that as kind of some guidelines. So utilize color, utilize your fonts, build your logo, and then you're going to want to have a lineup of supporting fonts. So these are not going to be the fonts that are in your logo, but they're going to be fonts that you're going to be able to use on your invoices, on your emails, on your website, on your Canva documents, on your social media. And when you show up and present yourself as the same look and feel every single time, it adds such perceived value of a professional, high-end, investment-worthy brand that it's the simplest thing that you can do is come up with a header font, a subheader font, a body font, and an accent font. So once you select those, and again, you're going to use a little bit of psychology. So let's say you have a really traditional logo, but you want to show that you're a little bit more modern modern and you're not, old school, you might use a serif or use a different style font to incorporate into that font family. So don't feel like you need to match it too much. The next thing your font or your brand toolbox would be images. So imagery can totally trigger memories. And so you want to make sure that you have 5 to 10 images that you use in repetition that best represent the work that you want to do. So we talked about earlier, refining your brand visually, over time. This may be something where those 5 to 10 images continue to update. Maybe you are done doing farm table weddings, or burlap and lace or whatever was a big trend, that everyone's trying to get away from. Make sure that you don't have images that show burlap and lace, because what people see is going to be what they want. So make sure that you have images that show up consistently on the headers of your Facebook, on that main hero image on your website. They, again, will remember what they saw before they remember your brand name to start their process of getting to know you. And so make sure that if you do hair and makeup, the first thing I see is not a bouquet of flowers. Show off that hair and makeup. If you're a venue, make sure it's not a romantic photo, which is beautiful, cool, romantic photo, but show me the vastness of your space in those first few seconds so that I'm able to dream a little within that. One of the other things that I recommend putting into your brand toolbox is making a list of do's and don'ts for your language. I'm definitely not a copywriter, but one of the most foundational things is, what language do I want to use and I want other people to communicate about my service offerings, and what are words that I do not want them to use. For an example, I was working with a photographer, and every time we mention his photography, we want to use the full word photography, not just photos. I produce photos, or I produce photography. Like that alone should see that elevation and kind of more professionalism that can provide. Same with Nancy, who she does heirloom gowns. So she takes, mother of the bride's dresses and turn them into new ones. And she's like, I don't want to be known as a seamstress. I don't want to be known as a crafter. I don't want to be known as a DIYer. Like, I create heirloom accessories from other vintage heirlooms, right? So like, that's the language that she uses. And so I think understanding your language can be so powerful as part of your brand toolbox. And then I highly recommend laminating that thing. Like, make a sheet, put your few photos, put your logo, put your brand colors so that you have your hex code or whatever it might be in front of you. And then every time you touch your brand or you hire a contractor, say, here are my brand guidelines. And that's going to really help make sure that you're positioning yourself to be the most professional, even though between, you and me and this little group and listening, like, we know you're just getting started. However, you're going to position yourself like the expert that you truly are and that you're moving in the direction to become.
I love that. Kaleigh, I'm really passionate about hiring and really passionate about building team and culture. And I feel like a huge element of that is giving clarity to your team about what you're doing. And so doing something like that very, very early on, even if it's going to change, but having that clarity around words. Something interesting that I just noticed you said, you talked about heirloom. You talked about kind of this like very custom, it felt high end, the words that you were using. You didn't use the word antique.
Yes.
She wasn't like sewing anything. Like it didn't feel like that. It was more like this, she's creating this very custom, very special piece. And just those words alone really elevated. So you're totally right. I love that. But back to the clarity really quick. I mean, that's powerful to be able to even hire a VA or an OBM, if you're in, the coaching space or anything like that, or even helping other people, but hiring these people, being able to hand them that to say, this is what I want us to look like, gives them a lot of freedom to focus on the content and the quality of work, not like redefining something that you may not have already.
Yes. Exactly. And the redefining part ends up with hiccups. So having a brand guidebook truly for a team is why I'm so passionate about just sharing what I did, because it prevents the hiccups. It also prevents wasted time. If I have an intern that I'm able to hand something to that's like, here are my colors, here are my fonts, and go create this ad for me, and she has the images in a folder, she's going to save time. And at the end of the day, it's going to look like something that's on brand, that's actually going to work for me because I'm leaning into my strategy, right, of what colors and fonts and all the foundation that I've already put together, what language works. So it's absolutely critical to have something. If you're just even starting, it's never too soon to put something together. And then maybe in your every 90 days, you just evaluate, are these images best speaking to the work that I'm capable of doing? And is there anything else I need to adjust or incorporate in any kind of way that's going to get me to where I want to go?
I love that. That's really powerful. Something you said about just making sure that things are consistent. Very, back in the beginning when we talked about consistent posting, to now talking about websites and talking about making sure that you're showing the images and showing the colors that you want to be showing. I see so many venues, and we are the Venue RX, right? So, we got to give a shout out and some love to our venue owners. But I do see a lot of venue owners who maybe their logo on Yelp is a little bit different than their logo on Google My Business. Colors are off. It looks like a different shade. It looks like they did a sepia filter on one. And so it is a little all over the place. When you're looking at a brand, let's say that you're starting to work with somebody reaches out to you. What are some of the first things that you do? What are some of the first things that you, Kaleigh, look at when you're evaluating where this client is that you may be taking on?
Totally. So one of my most popular services is my immersive brand audit for this reason. So it is really awesome to have another set of eyes evaluate what you're not really seeing. Or what a customer is and going through that customer journey. So one of the things that comes with my audits is I have a really extensive assessment form just to kind of understand who they're trying to reach and what price minimums they would like to be charging. But then the first thing I do is honestly just Google them. And everyone can do this for yourself. Like, how often do you Google yourself? Like, if someone was to look for a wedding venue or search your specific venue, there's actually a bed and breakfast that I'm being a part of right now, transitioning to a wedding venue. And I started Googling, and I want to say I found 40 different links from, of course, different rental places to, in this case, Airbnb, to Yelp, to bookings.com, to all of these platforms. And the logo and the messaging varied so vastly on every single one of them. It was like worms out of a can. Like, it was like everywhere. There was so much to pick up. And the first step is, again, having that brand guidebook, right? Like, what is your color? Every time someone sees your color, it should be the exact same thing. You never see Coca-Cola deviate from their red. You never see Tiffany's blue deviate from that blue. Just choose your color and embrace it and make sure that it looks the same on all screens. There is color codes for screen versus print. So each color has a color code that's a CMYK, which would be for print, or a RGB or a hex code, which would be for web. So just make sure you're using the right color code. Sometimes that can create the variance.
You saved somebody so much money just now for not, pushing purchase on a whole print order that they use the hex code for that's not in the print. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a hot tip.
So have that consistency for color. And then what I want you to do is make sure that you have consistent imagery across the board. So think of someone pre-engagement who runs across a wedding venue and is like, oh my gosh, this is my dream come true. I want to circle back to them once we are engaged. So they kind of have an imprint in their mind. It may have been on Facebook, it may have been on Instagram, it may have been on your website, whatever it might be. Then a couple months later, they get engaged. They're looking for the venue. They can't remember the name of the venue. They're poking around all online, trying to find you. And they see that image of a couple driving away in the sunset, whatever it is that you're using visually. And they see your pop of purple or whatever color it is. And they're going to be like, sweet, at home. I have been thinking about them and dreaming about them since I last looked at them. So make it really easy. Make it easy. Don't try to make it so flashy and sparkly on all the different platforms. Make it easy and consistent, because we're able to use psychology from a perspective of really creating trust through that consistency. So definitely making sure you're using the same logo, same colors, same imagery, and same language to describe. There's a venue in the Redwoods that I've worked closely with, and their tagline says laid back luxury, right? That's how they consider their property. And so every single platform that I go to, it may be the first time for someone. How are they being introduced to the brand? And so if these are all the, you have a long hallway and all these doors you go through need to enter or welcome someone in the same kind of way. So consistency is huge. And unfortunately, one of the things that most companies miss because they just get busy and they update one thing because they're like, no one's even on Facebook anymore. It doesn't even matter. Yes, it's still out there. And yes, 56% of your customers who are going to invest in your business are stalking you online. So I would give it either if you hire a professional to help stalk you in the sense of giving you feedback, or if you stalk yourself, I call it a self audit. It is like so critical that you know what comes up when you search your own business name. Some of it you may like, some of it you may not like, but you can have an action plan of what changes to make or what accounts to disable. For me, for instance, I don't even know the last time I was on Twitter. I know that I have a Twitter account that's out there that's probably dated 2017. It probably doesn't even look like I'm alive if someone found me on Twitter. And I'm embarrassed about it, but it does exist. And so we need to take ownership over making sure that we're controlling what that client experience is before they even have the option of sending us a contact form.
Kaleigh, would you say that this is something that needs to be done all at one time, or maybe even in like a week? Or could someone who's listening to this right now who might feel overwhelmed say, I'm going to plan this out over the first quarter, and each week I'm going to focus on a different platform or something like that to kind of divide it up? Is there any advantage or disadvantage to doing?
Yeah. I would rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, I say literally like get a glass of wine, get a coffee, get a matcha, get a tea, sit on the couch, maybe binge watch something on Netflix, have your laptop and just start Googling yourself and have a Word document open of like, oh, I need to correct that. Oh, I need to correct that. And that is how our couples and our clients are looking for us, right? They're typically multitasking, they're brainstorming, they're looking at us from lots of different angles. We don't have to make it serious. It's more important that we do the work and that we have a list of action items that we could put in for free to see the best momentum and results. So don't stretch it out. I mean, really logistically, when you sit down and do it, you're maybe looking at no more than 2 hours of time by the time that you Google yourself, open the tab, see if there's anything you want to change, and make yourself a to-do list. And then schedule out the to-do list over the longer period of time of what's more of a priority, or what may take a little bit of extra helping hands if you don't have the capabilities of updating your website or whatever that might look like.
I love that. Well, Kaleigh, thank you.
That being said, social media, for instance, also, I think that we are so focused on posting that sometimes we forget people may be years back scrolling. And so take advantage, especially on Instagram, of the archive feature. So you can archive past posts. So if you have a happy Easter post from 2018, just archive it. Make sure that you are utilizing Instagram. It served its purpose when it said Happy Easter, but for now, make sure that it's a place where people are feeling inspired and excited about the service that you can provide them.
That's awesome. And it sounds like really understanding the purpose of each platform. Like it's not, Instagram for many of the creatives in this space is not an announcement board. It might serve that purpose in a specific week, but it's really a place where people come to take a look at what our brand has to offer. And so It sounds like really understanding what each platform is meant for is really a huge place to start. Well, Kaleigh, I just want to thank you so much. I personally feel so inspired it's going to take me more than a glass of wine. It's going to take me probably a bottle of wine to look. Cool. Good. It's going to take me a little bit of time to look, because I know I'm inspired. Beginning of the year, here, I want to make sure that my brand looks right. And for anyone who's listening, watching online, I encourage you to do the same. You don't have to do it all at once, like Kaleigh's saying, but, put in the work, put in that time. So Kaleigh, I really appreciate everything you're doing. And where should people, let's say that people start this and they want to reach out to you because they need that fresh set of eyes on their business, or they're interested in some of the other services, where can people reach out?
Yeah, so the best place is probably my website, KaleighWiese.com, KaleighWiese.com, or online on pretty much all platforms. I'm at Go Kaleigh, Kaleigh. I think for me, my passion in life is to really empower small business owners and small teams, as well as solopreneurs, to be able to make sure that they're making brand and marketing decisions that are working for their business so that they can work smarter and not harder. So that being said, if you are on and following me, you're going to see that I offer kind of some express challenges. So we just finished a 3 website challenge where we got to tune in every day and I taught 30 to 45 minutes and then gave you homework, just a bite size, but something that you could see action in. Several challenges a year. I also have an online membership that is not open right now, but essentially it allows for small business owners to be able to have a small community. I show up every week. We teach, we talk, we get peer-to-peer reviews. It's pretty incredible. And then if you're looking to hire me one-on-one, I do actually offer logo services, website services, and then those immersive audits like I talked about. So if it's something that you feel like you could benefit from more one-on-one help, do not hesitate to reach out. My direct email is hello@KaleighWiese.com, which I'm sure will be in the show notes. And I love the opportunity at this point. I think I've looked at over 1,000 plus EventPro's websites. Tell me what you want to charge and what it is that you love to do. Usually I can give you some really powerful takeaways for what you can implement to get you to where I know that you have the vision of going and charge what you want to be charging. So those are the places to reach me, but I would look forward to anyone can just reach out and tell me they listen to the podcast, and I'd love to have a side conversation.
Awesome. Kaleigh, thank you so much for being on the show. You guys go check her out. All the places, Instagram, Facebook, and consider subscribing to the show. If you haven't already, we have amazing guests just like Kaleigh who are coming on. Kaleigh, again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let's do it again soon. I feel like there's a lot more we can still unpack.
Oh, there's absolutely plenty. All right, guys, see you soon.
Okay, bye.